Buenas noches. ¿En qué anda la banda de mierda? ¿Todo bien? Me alegro. Ya. Estamos acá. A ver. Volviendo a jugar Bomb y Flame. Ya le di continuar, así que está, qué sé yo, Nieri. Tampoco es para andar haciendo cabeza. ¿Quién somos nosotros acá? El rubio, nada, no me conoce nadie. No conoce nadie, pero tomamos un poquito de mate, amargo como la cocaína. Ya. A ver, ¿en qué estabas, no? Yo estaba hablando peleé con el pelotudo del opio. Acá hay la elfa. Parece que se podía hablar con ella. ¿Cómo anda doña? Tampoco. Bueno, acá hay comerciante, ¿no? Que me pueden vender un poquito de faja. Buenas tardes. No, acá adentro. Abrime la puerta. Ayuntamiento. Muy bien, che. Dale. Cargá. ¿Qué me decía? Un idiota. Otro idiota. Más gente idiota. Y otro idiota. Y acá hay un estúpido. Muy bien, vamos a hablar con el pelado. Buenas tardes.
Mercenary.
I need your help. According to the villagers, there's a beast haunting the swamp and it's attacked them several times.
I have heard about it, yes. And although I don't have any concrete information about the creature, there are some things that corroborate what they say. Even though we aren't very good at magic, we still feel it. And since we came to the swamp, we have all felt a powerful source nearby. The problem is that the source seems distorted, corrupted. Kind of like the one the Ice Lords use. Only not the same.
I hope for our sake you're right about that. Otherwise we're really up shit creek.
We are very certain of it. But this magic could very well have transformed one or more creatures in the swamp, making them more aggressive, bigger. Who knows? Something to frighten the villagers, in any case.
Sí,
So you're telling me the thing is magic and corrupted. Brilliant. Just what I needed.
Para, creo que acá me podía vender algo, ¿no? Espera la categoría.
Can I do something
¿Me da
for
una
you?
misión secundaria?
No, thank you. I don't need anything for the moment.
Pero la puta madre. Cambiamos de tema. A ver.
Tell me more about your order.
Before the war, our main objective in Creed was to collect and save all kinds of knowledge. We had a presence everywhere on the continent, and had chapters in every major city. We studied and preserved all possible sources of knowledge there. We also dispensed information and care. Because even though we're not the greatest magicians, our knowledge let us come to the aid of the wounded and the sick. I could of course relate our history in detail for hours and hours, but I doubt that is really what interests you.
O sea, por lo que entendí son unos magos, pero de mierda. Está bien.
With all the knowledge accumulated by your scribes, you must have learned something about the Ice Lords, surely.
We do indeed know some of their secrets, and a good part of their history.
Anything we could use to fight them?
We thought we'd found a chink in their powers that our ritual was supposed to let us exploit. But you saw the result.
That's one way of putting it.
That said, I'm beginning to wonder if we haven't involuntarily brought about the conditions for their end.
I'm not following you.
What you have within you could well turn out to be their doom. Even if I don't have the faintest idea of how or why. And unfortunately, as long as we don't know more about it, we also have to fear that it might lead to our doom, too.
Sí, ¿no? Y sí. Es una espada de doble filo. ¿Había alguna otra pregunta para este idiota? No. Bueno.
I'll be going now.
Chupale a vos, cabeza de espejo.
It's frustrating. I feel completely useless here.
Y bueno, siempre fuiste medio inútil vos. No, vamos a dormir. Dormir está sobrevalorado. Buenas tardes. Se están tocando, probar. Y no me va a mostrar que me... Ah, ahí va. Oro, gema, cuero, casco de tu vieja y flecha. A ver, acá no. El casquito. Ah, ya. Se cae a pedazos. La puta madre. No, mirá, boludo. Me veo como un virgolini. La puta que me parió. Oiga, sí, ahí hizo los deberes la página 32 del libro de matemática. Y me olvidé y bueno. Dice que quiero tener un 12. A ver, esta pelotuda. Buenas tardes.
Sybil, can I
Ah,
talk to
esta
you?
es la piba esta.
Yes?
Ya. Vaya pregunta para hacerte. Ahí va.
I'd like to ask you a few questions.
What do you want to know?
So Alas is your father.
Yes. And yes, he is the leader of the Red Scribes.
That's handy for you.
You are so predictable. Daddy's little girl can do whatever she wants, right? Don't fool yourself. I'm endlessly having to prove myself more than any other scribe. My father doesn't treat me better than the others, and I expect no less from him.
At least that explains why you look like you just stepped out of a library. I guess he encourages you?
Yes, of course. But I'm big enough to make my own choices. Knowledge fascinates me, and I suppose it would have been like that whoever my father was.
Ah, o sea que tú sos la que me va a pasar los deberes de matemática. Ah, un segundito. Tengo que hacer un opio acá. Listo.
Can you tell me more about your order?
Of course. The Red Scribes are an order of sages. Our quest is to find the answers to all the great mysteries of this world.
And so you know about magic.
We study magic from an essentially theoretical viewpoint, but we're not an order of magicians. Even though some of us practice healing magic, but we have nothing to do with the destructive power magic used by the Lords of the Frozen Shadows, and we know very little about that domain, unfortunately.
I see. But that doesn't mean you can't research it, huh?
Obviously, especially now. Any knowledge which would help us turn this war around would be helpful. But according to our archives, we were already studying magic more than 5 centuries ago.
Oh, really?
Muy bien.
What do you know about the Ice Lords?
As much as it is possible to know without having met them. In some ways, they're quite fascinating, even though the term might seem inappropriate.
¿Sí, no? La mierda con el señor de hielo esto.
Perfect. How do we kill him?
If I knew that, do you think I would keep it to myself? But I can tell you this, we do believe it's possible. We know that there are 7 lords. Black Storm, Lady Crystal, Marshal Winters, the White Lady, Lord Blackfrost, the Chiller, and the Ice Duchess.
Everybody knows that. We've had our asses kicked by them enough.
For sure. But in the past, there were more of them. Some scrolls talk of 9 or a dozen, even of 30 lords.
¿No será que el demonio
Of
este
course
es
it's
uno de los bichos
confusing,
eso?
and I doubt they would have freely given the information of how to kill one of them. But you can bet that some of them have died. We just have to discover how.
Where did they come from?
Most people believe that the lords appeared recently, at the beginning of the war. But I have found certain scrolls that lead me to believe they have been around more than 300 years. They are originally from a region far to the north of Vertiel. For a long time, they remained there. The beginning of their conquest is quite recent. We all think that the war started 10 years ago, but in fact, it is much longer, maybe even the last century. It took them a long time to escape from their region of origin. The dwarf kingdoms were in their way, and they put up a fight.
You had me going there for a moment. I'm sorry, but dwarves? Save it for the children.
But you're wrong. The dwarves did exist, but the Ice Lords exterminated them.
Muera.
Right. And I bet they also massacred all those poor dragons and goblins.
You know that dragons and goblins don't exist. You're impossible.
Do they have any weaknesses that we could exploit?
Not that I know of. All of the Ice Lords are powerful sorcerers. They are far more powerful than all the other magicians. They have an unlimited army. If they have a weakness, it's not that.
But in spite of all of this, you think there is something?
I do. We often imagine the Ice Lords as a vast megalithic power. But that's not true. In fact, they desperately hunger for power. Just because they pooled their powers to create the Deadwalker army doesn't mean they like each other. Their balance of power is precarious. As soon as they are done with destroying Vertial, they'll probably start killing each other.
Sure, but that doesn't help us much if we have to wait until they're done.
Perhaps there is a way to stir up the tensions between them. Even if for the moment, I can't think how.
Let's change the subject.
Cambiemos de tema. Dame un segundo, hijo de puta. Ahora sí.
Do you know what happened to me in the temple?
I'm still searching for an explanation. Something must have gone wrong during the ritual.
But what was the god's damn ritual supposed to do?
The Red Scribes have always had quite limited magical skills. I believe that the ritual was meant to increase their magical powers to try and find a way of combating the Ice Lords. But instead of channeling pure energy into each of the scribes, the ritual called forth a conscience that settled in you.
Your father called it a demon. How come I got stuck with it?
A demon? That reminds me of the old texts, but I couldn't say if that's what it is. You were standing right there, so that force flowed into you. It could have been my father, or any of us, I guess.
Well, that's just great. What do I do now?
I would dearly like to help you. But even though I have searched through all the texts I have here, I can find no reference to anything like this experience of yours, at least for now.
You know?
But until we have found out more, you must try to fight against this thing. Do not allow it to get comfortable. We don't know what its intentions are or how powerful it is. It could be dangerous for you.
So then, any result from the study of all these creatures of the swamps?
I have discovered a few things about the small chrysalids. They are much faster, but it seems that they can only attack from close up, using their pinchers. I also noticed that the medium-sized chrysalids were slower than small ones, but they, however, can fire tiny projectiles. The sickles have a power that depends on their growth. The biggest ones are the most dangerous. Up close, their attacks can be frenetic and extremely dangerous. They can also leap onto their prey.
Mira vos. Ya me pregunté eso, la pelotuda. ¿Por qué me muestra de vuelta esto? Me da ansiedad.
So then, any result from the study of all these creatures of the swamps?
Well, I'd really like to meet some of these creatures who live here. But for now...
So, any result from the study of all these creatures of the swamps?
Well, I'd really like to meet some of these creatures who live here.
¿Y si le
But for
pregunto otra
now...
vez? ¿Capaz que ahora? Ya.
What can you tell me about the World Heart?
Many of the people on Vertial believe that the World Heart is just a myth. There are many different beliefs from one region to another, but most of them have more in common than not.
The World Heart is where life and prosperity are born. I've already heard that crap.
If we were to imagine Vertial as a living being, the World Heart is exactly what it sounds like. The heart of the
El corazón del mundo.
It's what keeps the world alive. It beats, and Vertial lives from its energy.
No mienta.
If you wish, I can try to learn more about it. Come back and see me in a few days.
¿Una cita? ¿Es una cita? ¿Estás proponiendo sexo? Pregunta.
We need to talk about your combat style.
What do you want me to do?
In fact, you fight just great. Don't change a thing.
Era jugada, ¿verdad?
All right.
Alright. Nos vemos.
See you later.
Hasta luego. Buenas tardes.
Greetings, mercenary. What can I do for you?
¿Cómo?
Can I have a look at your stock?
Comprar. Vender. Primero vendemos este. Un hacha. ¿Cómo te vendo el hacha? Te vendo hasta... Sí, ¿no? Te vendo la mierda. Te vendo la mierda. Vendemos toda la mierda. Nosotros no usamos estas porquerías. Ahí tenés todas esas cosas. Metételas en el orto, hijo de puta. No tenemos... ¿Cómo que no tenemos ballesta, boludo? El opio del mercenario... ¡Epa! Yo creo que prefiero resistencia a la magia, ¿vale? Que la chupe. Casque... Acá las pociones... ¡Dau! ¿Y qué vendés? Tarado de mierda, si eso no. Acá no vende nada, no vende nada, no vende nada, no vende nada. De eso te lo vendí yo. Ah, pero sos tremendo, hijo de puta, boludo. Ah, sos tremendo. Sos tremendo, sos tremendo.
Greetings, mercenary. What can I do for you?
¿Qué pasa por mí?
I have some questions I'd like to ask you.
Estoy flasheando guambio, brother.
Do you have any idea about what's happening to me?
I'm afraid I may not be able to help you. Your condition is more due to magic than medicine. Your symptoms remind me of certain mental illnesses, where the subject has the impression he hears voices in his
¿Estás diciendo
head.
que estoy loco?
And do these nutcases throw fire and have eyes that burn from within too?
You'd be surprised at what they can do. But obviously you're not like them. That being the case, if you study them, you might find some answers. In particular, I'm thinking of the fact that most of these poor madmen end up giving free rein to the darkest side of their personalities. Make sure that doesn't happen to you.
¿Cómo? ¿Cómo? ¿Quién es el elfo que soba aquí al lado? No, pará,
Who's the big
boludo.
snoring elf?
Show some respect, please. That's Prince Arundel.
No.
And?
He's the son of the Elven King, leader of the last army standing against the Deadwalkers.
Yeah, okay. But he doesn't exactly look like he's ready to stand against anything just now. What's wrong with him?
From what I've been told, Relmar brought him here before we arrived. The prince and his men fell in an ambush. Without your friend, he wouldn't have made it out. Unfortunately, he was severely wounded and has probably been the victim of powerful magic. I'm trying to find a cure, but without much success for the moment.
I'll be going now.
¿Sí, no? Morirás, morirás. Portal de mierda, vas a morir, hijo de puta, hijo de puta. Sí, el tarado que nos apuntó con el arco. Buenas
Vulcan,
tardes.
you must help me. The prince is dying.
Sí, ¿no? No
Well,
importa.
I'm happy to see that my talents as a doctor are finally being recognized.
There's no doubt an explosion would cure him of all his ills forever. But I was actually thinking about your connections with the Red Scribes. If you could speak to them, it would save me having the prince's death on my conscience.
I wouldn't exactly call myself a friend of theirs. But yeah, I can always give it a try. I have a few questions I need to ask
Primero
you.
lo primero. ¿DNI? Ya.
Elves are pretty rare. I haven't had the chance to talk to many. Can you tell me more about your people?
We are born in the trees, eat only seeds, and we spend all the livelong day singing.
Hasta el pedo todo el
I get the
día.
feeling you're fucking with me.
Perish the thought. Well, it's just that we aren't that different from you humans, despite what one hears. Our civilization is obviously a bit older, so we have had the time to learn from our mistakes. We don't really live in the same rhythm as you do. We move a little slower, and most of us are prone to having at least some respect for the past. This is the reason why we never destroy anything, that we prefer to build on top of things.
I've heard that you are
Si se
immortal.
está muriendo esto, ¿te parece que inmortal?
That joke has lived for 15 generations. I will never get tired of it. No, we're not immortal. We live long lives, though, much longer than you. We are resistant to poisons, rotten food, and toxic body odor, apparently. Unfortunately, these things do not make us immortal.
Don't elves ever make war?
That's an impression we like to give other people. The fact is, we do go to war, just never against each other. You must understand that, given our long lifetimes, battles are fairly futile. This may well be what has motivated the choices of our king concerning the Ice Lords. But we certainly know how to fight, and you'll see proof of that soon enough.
So it's the prince who gives the orders.
The word orders may not be the best one. We do not submit nor obey easily. Our kings are a reference, wise men who can point out the way. They tend to guide us rather than give us orders. But to answer your question, it is his father the king who is the leader of our people.
Who is the elf in the healing house? Is he really your prince?
He is Prince Arundel, the son of our king and heir to the Elven crown. Therefore, yes, he is our king.
How the hell did he end up here?
Prince Arundel led a detachment of the Elven army sent to harass the Deadwalkers. And when he reached Bastion, he fell into an ambush. I got wind of this trap, but by the time I arrived, it was too late. When I caught up to the prince, he was already wounded, and most of his soldiers were dead. Those who survived covered our retreat.
To here?
Yes. The route to Carolthas was too dangerous. I knew about this village and felt that it would be secure for at least a little while. As soon as he gets better, we shall leave for Carolthas. The remainder of the human and elven armies are gathering there. That is where the final stage of the war will be played out.
You seem different from the other elves I've met. Where are you from?
Really? I seem different. And yet I have such pointy ears. And if you really want to know, I actually come from one of the most ancient and noble houses that exists. I'm even linked to the royal family. But I can assure you that I am sufficiently far down the line of succession to be in no danger of being crowned. And my reputation is no help either.
As far as bad reputations go, every mercenary has got one, so we're used to it.
Let's just say that I got into enough trouble to eventually be considered a traitor to my people. When I got involved in the war, I disagreed with decisions made by the king. He thought that this war, like so many others, would not last. That the conquests won by the Ice Lords would melt away like all the human victories before them had. But I thought differently. Right from the start of hostilities, I began to requisition certain resources I felt necessary for those doing the fighting. More food, more weapons, better armor.
Estás robando, hijo de puta.
When my people discovered what I'd done, I was declared an outlaw, and many saw me as a thief, which, in a manner of speaking, I guess I
sí.
was.
Y típico un elfo de mierda.
You refused to obey the orders of your king, and you stole resources. No wonder they outlawed your ass.
Nonetheless, I was right. The Deadwalker army is a threat to us all,
Y
and
por
not
eso te
only
robaste
the
la comida.
humans. If we had entered the war at the start, joining with the humans, we would have had a chance of defeating them. Today we might already be too late. The human armies were decimated, and Virtual is in ruins. So perhaps they consider me a traitor, but my conscience is clear. It is my people who should be ashamed.
Do you know these swamps?
I've been in this area long enough to have explored a fair amount of it, actually. The region is rather inhospitable, which I suppose is a good thing under the present circumstances.
A good thing? You're out of your mind.
These swamps are a labyrinth. The Deadwalker scouts will never be autonomous enough to find their way to the village by themselves.
That means we should be fairly safe for the moment. At least until a general or an Ice Lord comes to town.
Except that recently, there has been a change in these swamplands. and I must admit that I no longer feel safe at all.
What do you mean?
Something is affecting the swamplands, corrupting the vegetation and the animals. And I have no idea what it is.
Sí, están todos macumberos, lo he
Anything
dicho.
that grows or lives here could become a threat, so I strongly recommend that you watch where you put your feet.
Muy bien.
Let's change the subject. So is the prince doing any better?
He is still in a coma. He doesn't seem much better, no.
I'm going to talk with the Red Scribes, Doctor. He might know of a cure.
Thank you.
Let's change the subject.
O sea, después hablar de su cosa de combate, esto de las preguntas.
I have a few questions I need to ask
Son
you.
las que estaban, me parece. No hay ninguna.
Let's change the subject.
Si quieren acompañar, bueno,
I need your
vamos a probar a ver cómo pelea este
expertise. Will you
fracasado.
come with me?
Igual creo que voy a preferir a la piba.
Lead the way.
La piba cura. A no ser que esté metida en alguna poción, el hijo de puta. Acá quedamos. Córrete. No se puede hablar. ¿Habla con quién? ¿Qué se llama?
Do you have any idea how to wake the elf prince up?
Unfortunately, I don't. I think I've tried just about every remedy I know, but nothing works.
He looks pretty solid. Sleep will bring his strength back, and he may end up waking on his own.
Let's hope so. But to be honest, I'm worried about his condition.
I'm not going to sit here and do nothing while we wait to see if he's going to wake up or not. There has to be something we can do.
Well, there is a formula I haven't tried yet because it's very complex, and I'm missing a key ingredient.
What do you need?
A very virulent poison secreted by the chrysalid queen. But be careful you don't mix them up with the ones you usually see. I wanted to go looking for them myself, but the villagers stopped me. They say they're really dangerous. It seems they can be found along the road we took to get here. And apparently, they only come out at night.
I'll get you some. I'll be going now.
Nos vemos. Cambia la hora. Puedes cambiar la hora del día cubriendo los puntos de sueños indicados en el mapa con el símbolo de coso. Te preguntó igual, ¡Ea! ¿Qué anda, Yeri?
I am busy, mercenary. Go do what you're getting paid for.
¿Cómo? Ah, pero estás re chupapija. Buenas tardes.
Mr. Vulcan, what brings you here?
Ando buscando opio.
I've got a few questions I'd like to ask about this village.
I imagine there are few who are better placed than myself to answer them.
How come it's you that's running the show here?
What a question. Because, my friend, someone has to. You imagine I'm doing this for my amusement, perhaps? Doubtless you wish it was someone else. The chief of the watch has trouble organizing 3 peasants. Our dear apothecary is evidently keen to give succor to any and every poor soul who wanders into the healing house. And regardless of your reputation, the people of this village would never trust outsiders such as yourself, or even the Red Scribes. So yes, it is indeed I who command here. The one-time steward of the hunting lodge of Val-Veneur, now leader of this shithole.
Ya que sos un hijo de puta, me
Glad
estás
we got that
discriminando.
cleared up. What can you tell me about the people of Val-Veneur?
Before the war, there were just a few families here. Hunters and craftsmen, mostly. These days, they survive as best they can, husbanding their animals and digging up the puny vegetables they've managed to grow. Few dare to venture outside the walls. These woods are fruitful, but more perilous than ever before, and most of these folk know nothing of arms.
Sí, ¿no? Uno inútil.
But you've got your guards.
They hardly qualify as an armed militia. Of the few that remain, most are sturdy farmers whom we have entrusted with some kind of weapon. Most of the real fighters left the village as soon as war broke out. The others died while out on patrol. The only one left here with any real experience is Mason, the head of the guard.
Jason, digo, Manson.
Sadly,
Sonic
the
Manson.
man is a walking beer keg, who could not give a dog's fart for what his men are about.
Está bueno, pelea en pedo, boludo. Es lo mejor.
Who are all those refugees that you're keeping outside the walls?
The war with the Ice Lords has driven many from their homes and villages. Alas, it would seem that some of them found their way here. I have tried to accommodate as many as we can, and provide as much comfort as possible, but I fear we can do little more. We are reaching the end of our reserves, and relations between the refugees and the villagers are becoming strained.
The refugees can't all be dead weight. Some of them have got to be useful.
Oh, if only. Believe me, I would be the first to welcome them. These peasants have been fleeing from town to town and from camp to camp for months. The best and strongest of them perished in battles, somewhere along the way. I must deal with the leftovers. I put the biggest of them in the watch, but they are of little use.
The healing house. It's a pretty good thing for your village, huh?
If you say so. As time has gone by, the healing house has drawn refugees to the swamps in ever greater numbers, and dissuaded some malingerers from returning to their families. When it opened its doors a year ago, the sense of relief was palpable. It was run by a couple, an elf doctor and his apothecary wife, who clearly were no strangers to the healing arts. Thanks to them, we were spared many plagues. But as the war dragged on, the endless tide of refugees continued to flow through our gates until we could harbor no more.
Easy.
6 months ago, our worst nightmares were fulfilled. Our elf doctor fell ill and died.
Pincho.
Since then, Mirana has soldiered on without rest, alone. I do not know how much longer she can keep going. The refugees just keep on coming. And I fear that poor woman is beginning to crumble under the strain. It's not surprising.
Igual.
I need a blacksmith. Do you have one here?
With none more qualified, I asked Asiel to take over the village forge. I suppose I should warn you, he's quite a tricky character. He has a huge ego and is stubborn as an ox. Before the war, he was a sort of artist. He crafted jewelry and sculptures from metal. Despite running the forge, one could hardly call him a blacksmith. But he's the only one here who had even the vaguest notion of how to repair a shovel or straighten a blade.
O sea que es una persona útil pero inútil.
I've got a few questions I'd like to ask about this village.
Creo que no. El trabajo, lo hablamos.
The captain wants me to help your village. You got a job I can do?
With our shortages of food and fighting men, our worn-out equipment and the growing lines at the healing house, I cannot deny our village is sorely in need of help.
Bueno, dale.
Sadly, I fear that these are not the sort of problems you are used to dealing with, unless I'm much mistaken.
Maybe I'll surprise you. So what's the problem with the healing house?
Quite simply, Mirana cannot keep up. She spends every waking minute giving out supplies to the refugees and refuses to admit that she cannot help everyone. She thinks she's fooling me. I have heard rumors that her food stock is running low. Unsurprisingly, the crowds outside are becoming restless. I believe they wish to continue handing out our food reserves as though they were unlimited. This is not the case, and thus, it is not an option.
So, you want someone to put her down?
Why, I never suggested any such thing. I just wish she would see reason, for all our sakes. But I have asked nothing of you. I was merely answering your question.
Sí, ¿no? Hijo de puta.
Your guards... How can I put this? At first, I thought they were disobeying orders. Now I think maybe they don't even understand them. If you're stupid and incompetent, you should be digging turnips, not taking care of security.
You're beginning to worry me. Is it really that bad?
Are you kidding me? The state of their weapons is enough to make you cry. Maybe they'd be good for splitting logs.
Personally, I'm not capable of judging the aptitude of our sentries, but their poor results speak for themselves. Doubtless, you should share your observations with Mason, the chief of the watch. I should warn you, however, that he is of a somewhat stubborn nature.
Wouldn't be the first I've seen. I need the reports about this beast that attacked the villagers.
I fear I am unable to be of help. I'm still not entirely convinced that it even exists. All I know is that several villagers have vanished. One villager is at present in the doctor's care, following a supposed encounter with the said beast. These swamps are crawling with dangers. There is nothing to suggest anything out of the ordinary. The refugees are always inventing horror stories in an attempt to force us to open our gates and let them inside.
It might be worth checking it out. You said you lost one of your patrols, right?
That is so. You should speak with Randval. He was most anxious to go out and hunt the beast down, but we needed him here. Now that we have more able bodies to guard our gates, I imagine he would be keen to pick up the scent once more.
We'll talk again later.
Chupala, yo estoy.
The knight heard talk of a troubling event that happened during the meeting between the mercenary and the steward.
Yeah, the short version is that I have a demon living inside of me.
A demon? The knight has never heard of such a creature.
Este es el tarot acá en tercera persona.
Don't worry about it. The thing inside of me allows me to control fire. Could be pretty useful against the dead walkers, huh?
Evidently. But is there not a risk that this creature will devour the mercenary?
A risk? Not yet. It needs me, and I have it under control.
Sí, por él.
I have a few questions I need to ask you. You mentioned the Order of the Ember Knights. What is that?
It is the order that the knight belongs to. They are the surviving warriors and honored soldiers of other orders that were lost during this war.
Oh, so it's kind of the Order of the Orphan Knights.
This name does not sound well to his ears.
Right. So you haven't always been an Ember Knight?
No. He was first a defender of the Algander Islands. Then he was a Templar of the Order of Burgians, and then a Brother of the Rock, and then a Summer Tracker.
So all of those orders have been lost. That must have been hard.
He has lost many valorous companions in battle, and his heart is heavy with scars.
I'll bet. So what is the creed of the Ember Knights?
The knight has long searched for the answer. Now he knows it. To seek a glorious death and carry as many enemies as possible away with him.
Sí, ¿no?
That's kind of depressing. If you follow me, we should be able to find a chance for you to get your beautiful death. Just try not to commit suicide at the first available opportunity.
The knight will wait for this moment.
You're not from around here. Where do you come from?
The knight was born in the Algander Islands. It is a proud and savage place where the struggle against the wind and vicious neighbors makes a man strong. The Ice Lords attacked the islands more than 15 years ago, long before the rest of Vertial knew that the world was now at war. The clans were always fighting, but they fought together as brothers when the islands were threatened. And as a defender of Algander, the knight had the honor to be one of the first to fight, and with his brothers for a long time he repulsed the invader. Some of the clan chiefs wanted to make peace with the Ice Lords, but the Ice Lords betrayed them and the clans were decimated. Their numbers were sorely missed during the following battles, and in a few short months the war was almost lost. The knight was sent by the surviving clan chiefs to the mainland to find allies. But time is a cruel master. When he returned to his homeland, the islands were buried beneath the ice.
No te pongas a llorar, hijo de pute. Ahora un segundito. Ahora yes.
So how did you end up in the village of Val-Veneur?
When he saw that all his kin were slain, the knight was hungry for revenge and sought out battles to bathe his pain in blood. But in every battle, he lost more of his brothers in arms and faced an enemy that only grew stronger. The orders were always hazardous, with betrayals common and errors never-ending. Faced with these eternal difficulties and death, always more death, the knight lost his hope, and so he left the field of battle. He decided instead to take care of the war's victims, to protect them, even though he knew it could only last a short time. It is a final mission without any other hope but to give comfort and relief to a few innocent souls.
What do you think of the Red Scribes?
Their studies have made them blind. Only knowledge interests them. They show contempt for all else. Today they have the ear of the last surviving warriors. They do not deserve this honor, and their words are hollow.
Ouch.
So what did you abandon when you entered into the Order of the Ember Knights?
The knight has already said he does not wish to speak of this.
Y la familia, boludo.
This could be the last chance you get to talk about it.
It is true that tomorrows are becoming less likely. But the abandonment of the past means the forgetting of it. And it is often painful to dig through memories.
That's what you claim, but I can tell you're dying to talk about it.
Very well. Know then that the knight once had a family.
I suppose they must be dead. I'm sorry for your loss.
It was long ago. 15 years have passed since his wife and his 2 daughters were taken from him.
The Deadwalker army?
Yes. They were among the first victims when the Ice Lords attacked the Algander Islands. They were thought to be safe with the other women, far behind the front lines. But the Deadwalkers broke through our lines and stole away the innocents. The knight searched the enemy lines for days, but when he found them, he had to fight what the sorcerers had created from his wife and his children. A dread creature, multiple and monstrous. This was the most difficult fight of all his life.
Let's change the subject.
Bueno.
I'll leave you.
Chupala, tarade. Habla bien. ¿Dónde está el estúpido este vos, flaco? Vos no me estabas siguiendo. Yo vine de allá. De acá vine, ¿no? Vine de acá. Tucson, Tucson. ¿De acá qué hay? ¿Por qué me muestra como si hubiera una puerta? Ah, la escalera, boludo. Robar. Bueno. Algo. No hay más nada para robar. Necesito robar para vivir. Es parte de mi neto. Córrete. Necesito robar y matar. Es fácil de matar. Pará, que tenía un par de preguntas todavía. Dale, cargá, dale, tarado, dale. A ver. Acá. Ahí me lleva para afuera. ¿Para dónde me lleva? ¿Me lleva el opio? Pero... mirá, boludo. Nada, más o menos. Dale, tarado. Cargá de una vez. De una vez. Pero me da ansiedad. ¿Cómo? Ok, creo que pasa que ya está, me parece. Ya hablé con todos los chupapistas de acá adentro, ¿no? Quiero dialogar. De acá también. Me entré por acá. No de puta, sí. Ya hablé con todos. No, bueno, veamos. ¿Alguno tiene opio? ¿Cómo? Combinar componentes. Combinar componentes directamente desde el menú bolsa para conseguir otros de calidad superior. Muy bien, te felicito. Jefe, te felicito. Bueno, la verdad que voy a guardar y me voy a retirar. Guardamos acá un poquito. En Val-Veneur. Espectacular. En Val-Veneur. Y la verdad que este ha sido un capítulo de mucho texto, pero interesante, me gustó ahí las cosas que me dijeron los fracasados de mierda. Un poquito de su historia y un poco de contexto del opio. Así que, qué sé yo, es bueno informarse un poco, boludo. No es solamente agarrar, mandarse, pegarse espadazo y morir en la batalla una y otra vez. También hay que entender un poquito la historia del juego. Si no, anda a jugar a, qué sé yo, al bug, boludo. No rompa los huevos, juega al LOL. Así que, gente, sin más preámbulo, me voy a retirar. Nos vemos.